ourselves in a way that we're showing up with that shukr, we're showing up with that gratitude. This last 10 nights, how do we maximize cultivating our best self? And what does our best self look like? What does our best self look like spiritually? What does our best self look like emotionally? What does our best self look like in our character, in our relationship? And is it okay for us to be here at night and listen to the Quran and be behind the Imam, but then when we enter our homes or we enter our relationships, when we are speaking with our spouse, when we're speaking with our kids, that our character and our akhlaq is lacking? It's not at the level where we're striving. The way that we're striving and as we're entering the masjid, how do we strive and transform our character as well for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the beautiful thing about this Ramadan is that if you reflect on it, that what is this special gift that Allah has given us, this gift of fasting, the gift of Sawm. When you are just fasting, if somebody says, all I can do today is I can make my fard and I can fast all day and I'm not going to do anything else. And if they only fast, just the act of fasting, what are we actually doing while we're fasting? What are we actually doing? And this is what we want to sometimes reflect on, that it's not about what you're doing, but it's about not what you're not doing. You're not eating, you're not drinking, you're avoiding intimacy. And it's not about just avoiding it for the sake of avoiding it, but because of what's in your heart. It's about how can we not just do more, but we become more. We become the better version of ourselves. We become the best version of ourselves. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. What does taqwa mean to us? What does taqwa mean? Taqwa is that state that we are continuously watching our heart and the state of our heart. Imam Ghazali mentions that the levels of fasting, that the first level, when we're just having that basic level of not having food, water, and intimacy, and the second level, when you're fasting from the limbs. And also, my brothers, the fasting of the stomach, fasting of the gut, what does that mean? What does that mean? It's not just you're not eating food all day and then as soon as you open your food, mashallah, you're having all this dessert and all this fried food and all this, food that completely takes you away from taqwa, takes you away from consciousness and awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Taqwa is also fixing our relationship with food. As our teachers and scholars, many of them mentions that when I'm about to fill my stomach and I take my hand away from that morsel that's going to make me really go beyond my limit, that taking my hand away and that regulation is more beloved to me than staying all night in salah. And the reason is that rectifying your relationship with food requires a deeper state of consciousness and awareness in your heart and this regulation on yourself, on your nafs. And taqwa is about training our nafs. That how do we not operate on autopilot? How do we not operate in autopilot? Taqwa is about turning off autopilot and coming back to awareness. Like before Ramadan, people are having all these habits and they're all over the place. They didn't know what they're doing with life. As soon as Ramadan hits, they're like, okay, I gotta wake up. I gotta come back to my awareness. I gotta come back to my consciousness. If you learn to let go of distraction, if you learn to let go of your distraction, this is the first step in building taqwa. Taqwa is about learning to focus your mind and learning to focus your heart. And if I say that I want everyone to look at my face, I tell everybody, hey guys, everybody look at my face. As I'm speaking, look at my face. And then I start doing this. Where does your eyes go? On my hand, right? So this is what we are, is that even if I say something, but I do something else, your mind goes somewhere else. And when you catch yourselves and you say, hey, he told us to stay on his face, but we're now looking at his hand. This is called meta-attention. This is called our ability to pay attention to our attention. And the people that are doing mind training and meditations, they're actually learning how to stay in a state of focus for long periods of time. They're training their minds. The Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in, they were people that really learned the skill well. That the Prophet ﷺ, he stayed in that sense of presence of Allah in his heart all the time. And he never ever went away from that awareness of Allah, except sometimes maybe he got overcome with what a human being gets overcome with in terms of taking care of home, family, relationship, conversations. And he said, the word he used, he said, there is fog over my heart. Meaning, it's a fog means you can still see, but you can't see very clearly. So maybe while I was being so clear, my heart was so clearly in the presence of Allah, I just got a little bit of that layer of fog over my heart as I was having a conversation with my wife, with my kids, with everybody else. And so what I do is I sit and I make istighfar. I sit and I make istighfar 70 times. And this fog, for us, it's like complete ghafla. For us like normal people, we completely forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the Prophet ﷺ, he was always in the presence and remembrance of Allah, except he had this fog. And to let go of the fog, he came back to Allah with istighfar. So as we are saying istighfar this Ramadan, are you saying your istighfar? One of the narration Prophet says, this is one of the month of Ramadan, you should do two things a lot. A lot of istighfar and la ilaha illallah. Astaghfirullah, la ilaha illallah. Astaghfirullah, la ilaha. Keeping your tongue busy with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But how do we activate our heart? How do we make sure that our heart is also present? And this is the third level of fasting Imam Ghazali mentions, that the final and this best level of fasting is the people that are not just fasting with their food, water, and intimacy, not just fasting with their tongue and the action of their limbs, but they're fasting with their heart. That they never let go of letting their heart get away from the presence and the remembrance of Allah. Everything they do, their heart connects with Allah. Somebody asks me, like I'm in the space of this mind, emotional intelligence, leadership training, mindfulness training. So I learned in one of my certifications, I learned how to do meditations. So somebody asked me, do Muslims meditate? And I had like Christian friends, Jewish friends, and there's something that we have so much in our deen. And one of the things that I say to them and say to others normally is that Muslims, Allah has programmed micro moments of meditation all day long for us. Allah has programmed micro moments of meditation when we focus our mind all day long. What is that called? It's called niyyah. It's called making intention. Before everything you do, you wait for a minute and you say your dua, you make your intention, then you wear your dress. You're wearing a new dress? Okay, what is my intention? What is the dua? You're eating food, what's my intention? What's the dua? Going to sleep, you're going to the restroom, you're coming out of the restroom, coming to the masjid, exiting the masjid, talking to your friend. Everything you do, you make an intention, you make a dua. You enter your home, live your home. We are meditating on Allah and our intention all day long. All day long. And my brothers, the Prophet ﷺ said, nothing can calm your heart. Nothing can calm your heart, your difficulties of the heart, the restlessness of the heart. Then nothing has more potency than the reading of the Quran. And Quran, if we are really connecting with the Quran, your heart is present. And some people might say, I don't know the Arabic. Mashallah, like they say, they ask this person, like, brother, I don't think you made 4 rakah. He's like, no, I made 4 rakah. No, I think you made 3 rakah. Like, how do you know? Like, I know that I did 4 rakah. Like, how? It's because every rakah, I have 4 shops, and every rakah I do all the counting at the end of the day in my rakah. So each rakah I do each store. So by the time I finish 4, mashallah, I'm done with all my accounting. So I finished all 4. That meant I definitely did all 4, right? So this is what happens to our salah, that mashallah, it becomes one of those really amazing time when we are reflecting on stuff and all these great ideas are flowing through our head. We're solving problems, mashallah, all those problems that you didn't have, the solution didn't come to you in the meeting. Now it's all flowing, mashallah, So you have all these great thoughts. It's all good, but how do we make sure that we are able to stay put and then have that experience in our salah? You're doing all night long, you're doing salah, but you don't know so many of those rakahs you're not even present. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want? Those 30, 40, 50 rakahs when your mind is not present, or just that with the quantity, of course we add quantity, but how do we experience Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Anta ka'annaka tara. This is my final thing that I'll leave you with, is that there are some tips. Imam Ghazali mentions that Hatim Asim rahimahullah, he had such beautiful khushu when he prayed. So he was asked, this is in Ihya Ulumuddin, in Imam Ghazali's, one of the 40 volumes, it's called Kitab al-Asrar al-Salah, the secrets of Salah. He said, Hatim Asim was asked, how do you have such beautiful khushu? And Hatim Asim rahimahullah said that when I stand for Salah, before I stand, I sit at the place of prayer. And I then collect myself inwardly in my mind and outwardly my body. I collect myself, collect my attention. And then I stand. And when I stand, I visualize. I visualize that as if I'm standing in front of Allah, the Kaaba is in front of me. That I visualize the Jannah is on my right. That I visualize that the Jahannam, the hellfire is on my left. I visualize the angel of death is behind me. I visualize the bridge of Sirat is below me. And now I pray as if it is your last prayer. You know, this is if I'm leaving and I'm going back to Allah, and like I went to Konya a couple of years ago, like Maulana Rumi, and so they basically have this big turban they wear, right? You've seen the big turban, and they wear this big huge thing. So we asked, like, what is this big thing? What does that signify? The big thing that they wear, that they put their turban around, they call it basically their tombstone. They say that this signifies the tombstone. So die before you die. Die before you die. So we always remind ourselves, how can we live in a way that we're ready to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So how do we have this beautiful quality in our prayer that Khatim Asim is mentioning? We visualize. That night of Mi'raj, the Prophet went through the first heaven and the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth. When was the last time you were able to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes all the veils. One of the narration comes that Allah removes all the veils between you and Allah when you stand for salah, when you go into sujood, you're closest to Allah. When do you even feel that all of these distance is gone and you're really close to Allah and you're really right there experiencing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you can see Allah? And then if you cannot see it, and you know that you're within the sight, within the vision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One tip I will share is that for non-Arabs, those of us that don't know Arabic, and you're struggling to connect with the Quran, Imam Ghazali mentioned a few emotions. He mentioned a few emotions. He said, first and foremost, you need hudur al-qalb. Your heart has to be present. Learn to relax and focus your mind, number one. Number two, whenever you see it gone, don't beat yourself up like, man, I'm never going to be able to do this. I am not made for this. Which rak'ah am I on? So our teachers say, instead, make shukr to Allah. That Allah, you brought my body here. Help me bring my mind. And just bring it back. Keep training yourself. Bring it back to Allah. Bring it back to the mercy of Allah, remembrance of Allah. Number one. Number two, Imam Ghazali says, is tafahum, which is understand what you're reciting. Understand. But if you don't understand, then what happens? And then Imam Ghazali mentions 4 emotions. He says, you should stand with respect and ta'adhim. That I'm standing in front of Allah. Show respect. Who are you standing in front of? That's the beginning. Then he says, after that, solely think about Allah's greatness and majesty, that He is the King of the kings, the owner of the heavens and the earth, the owner of angels like Jibreel and Mikael. Jibreel Islam, when he spread 2 wings, the east and the west, the entire world is covered under the wings of Jibreel Islam. And he has 600 of those wings. So Allah is the creator of Jibreel and Mikael and all of these beautiful angels. That's the majestic creations of Allah that we know and we do not know. And this is what Allah is, and I'm standing in front of Him. So Imam Ghazali mentions, go beyond ta'adim and respect to hayba and awe of Allah. Have this awe, like, wow, I'm Allah, this great creator, the Rabb of Muhammad, the Rabb of Jibreel and Mikael, He's right in front of me and looking at me, paying attention to me. Oh my God. Bring this awe. The third thing Imam Ghazali mentioned, he says that also sometimes you might be awestruck by a king, but you have no expectation from that king. Okay, like he's passing by, you're like so awed, like, wow, I got to see this king. I got to see this really amazing person, this celebrity or this king or this president, but you have nothing to expect from this person. But Imam Ghazali says, with Allah is different. While you have the awe, you have this beautiful sense of raja. Have a lot of hope that this is a king that wants to give you. He's ready to give you. He's ready to answer every prayer. He's ready to fulfill all your demands. So have a lot of raja and a lot of hope. And then Imam Ghazali mentions a 4th emotion. He says, haya. Have some modesty in front of Allah that, oh my God, who am I to be called here in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Me? Allah called me? What did I do to deserve this? To stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What did I do to deserve this? And I was saying that we're making shukr of Allah in this last 10 nights. And last thing I'm going to leave you with is the Prophet ﷺ said, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا, that when his feet got swollen standing in front of Allah at night, and Aisha said that Allah forgive all your sins, past sins and future sins, all the sins are forgiven. Why are you trying so hard? And the Prophet said that if Allah really indeed forgave all my sins, then أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا, that should I not be amongst the grateful servants of Allah? Should I not show my gratitude by standing in front of Allah? So overcome with this emotion of gratitude. What I'm leaving you with is, If you know the Quran, you connect to the meaning, do that. If you can't, search for even one ayah you understand and connect with it. One word you understand, Rahman, Aziz, Jabbar, Hakim. One word, connect with that. You can't even connect with one word, connect with Allah by these emotions. These emotions bring respect, bring awe, bring this hope, bring this gratitude, bring this modesty, and try to activate your heart to be in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this last 10 nights. Not just in your salah and your worship, in your character when you show up with your family. Make your private life at home with your family better than your public life, inshallah. Transform your character, transform your relationship. That's when you have taqwa, that's when you have shukr. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all tawfiq. Ameen. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.